Hello. There we go. Everything we do is like broadcasting and a radio together. We express ourselves even without knowing that we are expressing ourselves in all kinds of colors, and we are saying things that we maybe not always understand with that. But we are sending signals in everything we do. We are so incredibly creative that we can make miracles like machinery just because of the beauty of it. We can make things that make us so quick that we can overcome any animal, and we can kill them, by the way. We are so able to control ourselves that we can kill ourselves, and we can cure ourselves or comfort ourselves. And with that, we are so eager to be on the top that, in fact, we are at the top of the food chain now. And look how happy we are. We can get anything from anywhere, the whole world, and we're really proud of it. We got them. Of course, that took some price. We had first to kill our natural enemies, because we are not that strong. We had to change the world a little bit, no problem for that, and drag around some food, chop some trees. The point is, for all of that, we need tools. That's the price that comes with it. And the tools are made in here. You hear? There are two halves. Now, let me explain where the tools come from. We didn't always look like this. This gradually began with something else until it was what it is now. Well, of course, evolution doesn't stop there. It continues. And in the meantime, we invented these weapons and things we could change in small communities. And it was so clever to go in a community because one goes hunting and the other makes these contraptions that are very useful and have a value you can exchange. You can check, well, is this skin worth the weapons? Weapons were very important because we had lots of things running around that are far more dangerous than us, far more stronger. And of course, our own species that always were in the way when we wanted to chop their woods or whatever. So if you had an important tool like a weapon and something to defend yourself with, you could start collecting taxes, as you can see here. These are some early taxpayers. In the beginning, it was all quite difficult to get your money. So, but if you were well equipped, you were really in power. So tools got more and more important, and the looks of it as well. I mean, if you have the weaponry and you look like the king, who's going to stop you? No one. So there's a next message. And it was no longer necessary to look strong. You just needed to look intelligent. And you could buy that. You can buy that. So women started to look for the intelligent guy. He didn't understand that. He neither. But it works with buying things to express yourself. Now the point is, in the time when these guys grew up to be humankind, money was invented. That was a great idea, and these were coins, they were made of gold. And so the gold was really worth a stick or a swine. That was wonderful. But it also divided us in the red team and the blue team, the producers and the consumers, because the producers got very, very exact. They were surgeons and they were sculptors and anything, and the others just bought the stuff. Well, that's a good thing to do, because you can enjoy life then, can't you? And you can create in your own community something where you have an inheritable joy for the gold you spend to buy the things. Now, if you go every time on 10 years and you take any interior in the world, you see something changing. Because while everybody was aiming for value, something with the producers changed. And all of a sudden, within 10 years, we had this in the room. Now try to find anything you would like to inherit. In fact, you probably have to pay to bring it away to the waste, I think. How was that possible? Well, the producers, they evolved on and on. They didn't stop there. They were inventors of a profit that looks exactly like value. Now, how did they do that? Well, you take a product, you know everybody wants to have it, and that was, as I told you, replaced by money. That was the same value. So there you have the value and the money. So I could do this, and we had the same thing. Now, of course, it costs something to produce this thing, and you have to pay tax, as I explained. And so afterwards, the producers were stuck with only a part of the value they created. Well, they thought that was unfair, and they were a bit, well, you know, so they thought, let's make the one of plastic. It costs less, and if we say it's beautiful, it has the same value. Great, great idea. They have other systems, but I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to incriminate them, to earn money. Well, this idea of aiming for profit came from an ancestor. He was called Al. Al from Missing Link. We are still kind of looking for him. He was half a totally sincere animal, and on the other side he was a creep. That's to say a human being. Sorry. And police says he looked about like this. This is a reconstruction. Now there was something. He heard that people are looking for value. Of course, that's wonderful. And he thought, well, there's this value for profit, so we can arrange a profit, and then, wait, you know, we may aim for profit. That's a good idea. Let's aim for profit. Smart thinking. And then he heard from people who said form follows function, and that's great. He didn't know that the one who said that created this, which is quite different from the ones who formed him up, and said God is in the detail and less is more, but it was very useful for him. He counted the windows, he looked at the movements that had to be made to craft it, and then he went his way. All right, God is in the detail, less is more, let's start building. And there we have it. God has left the building because we were modernizing the world. And that's where I'm picking up my story. Let's modernize the world. This is very recent. Look, not 10 years before that, here you have my mother, at the time my father still loved her, and this was where she lived. It's a beautiful house, and they had a very nice interior, and they made the best pastry and chocolate in the world because they wanted to deliver value. They were somehow, in a religious way, related to value, and it was all wonderful. But now, it looks like this. That's cheaper. If you have a house like this, you have to clean all these little windows and paint them all over. You know what? We take plastic. That's better. And it was very contagious because everybody saw immediately the profit that could be made. So everything was modernized in my town, for example. But you can see this all over the world happening. People modernizing things that came from our ancestors and say, well, let's do it cheap. There's something to keep you from the rain, and there are signs on it. It's all great. You come over here and buy something. It's the aim for profit that is doing that, and to do that as cheap as possible. Well, then of course you get the thieves. They come for getting your money, and so you have to make something, a contraption to prevent them coming in. And if everybody is happy with that, we end up with streets like this. That's the truth. And this is happening all over Europe. I don't want to blame one city for that. But if you look at this, finally people start to think, well, doesn't that look rather empty in a way? Well, that's because we have these two brain parts. Somewhere there is a moment where we really become aware of the fact that shape, as a consequence of human behavior, reveals our identity and our intentions. And if you see it like this, it looks quite boring. But if I put something to it, you will understand immediately what's going on. When I'm standing there, I get a message that is huge. We cannot avoid sending messages. When you see this, I would put this in a museum like that. It's ready. If you don't understand this, I don't need to make art anymore. It's a ready-made thing. Aiming for profit in general thinking means keep it cheap. So, town planning is culture and architecture is an art form. Well, there you go. I can't sublimize that. It's wonderful. Not so long ago, not 100 years ago, pissing in public went like this. Small paradises where you paid a little money for someone who had a job there, and you could go to the loo. That could be cheaper and a bit cheaper and still a bit cheaper, and finally we find ourselves doing this. Now this is after 2,000 years of civilization. Did we aim for value or profit? The same goes, you can always make it cheaper still. Avoid that they piss in the corner. You don't need a designer, just take it from nature and put it there, and it works wonderful. But it's also a message. We can't avoid that. And in the time that we were aiming for value, everything seemed so natural and so somehow uplifting. It gave us the impression we were doing something sensible, and we could feel comfort of anything that surrounded us in a way that was fair and correct to the things we invested. But at some point we started to tear that down and put modern things for it. Really modern things, you see? That's quite modern indeed. And so is crisis is a human invention, and it's all beginning with the aim for profit. It's very, very important to know that. If you look at our city center and you see something like this, consider, is this value or profit? That's the point. 100 years ago, you would travel by train like this. Now, to make it a little more price-worthy or less difficult to maintain, they put the chairs in a row and made them with sky, which also was red, and there was a handle, very functional, and you could drop your coffin somewhere. And there you see ourselves sitting after 150 years of railroad like this. It reveals our identity because we start to behave like that. Now what crosses my mind is, are we behaving like this because it looks like that, or does it look like that because we behave like that? Because if it would have looked like this, the crime to destroy it would be much bigger. And you would have to be a much stronger hero to do that, and you would probably end up in a psychiatric somewhere. Well, the same went with eating in the train, went out like this, drinking, same, again, pissing in the train. We now at this point, you can take a bag with you and hang it in there. Great, great ideas, 2,000 years of civilization. You could go by train from there to there, and everywhere, everything was different. And it was a joy to see a new surrounding, try their coffee, their salad or mashed potatoes or their booklets. And you would get funny things to take home where the sugar was in, and you could think, well, would that coffee really be that great? And when you were at home, you had a collection that told you more about the identity of your country than you could ever learn in a geography lesson. It really works. You get a bond with it. Now you are dragged around from one kiosk to the other, getting the same shit everywhere, always because there's someone behind it thinking of the next lie to make you buy this chewing gum, tasting like pig. No offense, but we really missed something. Not so long ago, we had this. And now if you leave it to the government, they need committees because there are so many claims that reason asks of us because we are responsible when we do things. And before you know it, you will end up in something that is really awful. You end up to find out that your identity has changed due to the fact that you only use one brain half to commit to. If you lose your identity, scientifically, there are only 3 ways to get it back. You can reconstruct it, put the stuff back. You can redefine it. We love it. It's beautiful. Or you can use your emotional intelligence. Now, that's the realm of these guys. If they would get a child, it might look like me. They are really aiming for value. They are not interested in profit, and they use both brain halves really good, really good. They watch out, am I still checking the other side? Am I going right? And there were guys who did this, and it wasn't 150 years ago. Artists and engineers got the same education. Did you know that? This has only very recently stopped. We try to pull these halves apart like the Magdeburger balls. While in the middle there's the corpus callosum that makes 500 million connections per second to check if the other one is all right. But if you look at modern images of this same thing, look, we can now name numbers, analysis, logic, list, sequences, applied science, eclipse applied creativity. That's what's gone into human brain when you aim for profit. And now we got to the era of mind-rutting. There you see it, mind-rutting. All emotions, when you were 10 years ago, you were emotional, people would say, he's an important guy, he's emotional, but now they say, please go to the hallway because we have to make a decision here. We don't need sentimental guys here. And rational, of course, means functional. So I give you an example of that. You just open up the lid, and you see the empty bottle standing on the side where we used to work with. Well, can you imagine that is the reason why Europe is cracking, why we're standing on the edge of being broke. And on top of that, we are considered to be practices of an expensive hobby of the left. We are really the third worst film you can be in. And so the politicians decided to say, well, these artists, they make money, don't they? And I do make money with my works. I make strange works, never mind. And I even invented a tower to enlighten my city again, because you saw how it looks now. I think if you don't have the money to buy a lamp, you can always reflect the sun that shines somewhere else. Well, in the same time, I got charged. I got arrested. I was interrogated for 3 hours because I was refusing to register as an artist producing with an intentional aim for profit. And I was refusing to pay the fine. It was here in Roermond. And that's an economic crime, and I'm facing prison and, of course, a criminal record. Yes. So I had organized an assembly of the 20 most important artists from Holland at this moment. And the first complaint was a terrible smell of smugness in the room. And the second one was, what on earth do we do to have a proper living? Why should we live on? Well, because we do. I am not aiming to win a treasure, to find one. I'm looking to leave one behind. That's what it's about. I'm now making some sculptures for a work, and I try to find out whether God wants to fit in the detail of something I'm doing now. Because we can't force him, of course, but we can sure give him a chance, a place to land, maybe nest there. And so the tower I designed is actually built now in the city of Heerlen. And if you ever have time, I don't want to make a commercial about this, but we are building the walls, putting up the bricks, and we are striving for an inheritable joy. And I hope that if you once are in a shop to buy something or thinking about producing something, please aim for value. Leave a treasure behind. Thank you.